We're ready.
Town of Presque Valley Work Study Session, February 18th, 2021, call to order. Clerk, please call the roll again.
Okay. Councilmember Kinsinger.
Here.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Here.
Councilmember Hepperly.
Here.
Councilmember Schumacher.
Present.
Councilmember Packard.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hunt.
Here.
Mayor Polguta.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thanks, ma'am. Jump right to item 3A, Police Department Staff Introduction. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. With me, I'm Lieutenant Jeremy Martin, Prescott Valley Police Department, and standing by my side is newly appointed Lieutenant Mike Corcoran. Mike is very appreciative of the opportunity to be here. He's a prior police officer with the City of Phoenix. Mike spent 30 years with Phoenix Police Department. He was a sworn police officer there. He spent 22 years as a sergeant in a vast array of different assignments, so we're very thankful to have that. 22 years as a sergeant, and he's excited to apply his experience here. And Mike brings with him not only 30 years of law enforcement, but he also has a fiancée named Maria and 2 adult children. The children, Carly and Cameron, do live in the Phoenix area, so they are grown and out of the house, and Mike is just happy for his second job here. He retired last June from Phoenix PD and was at home for about 6 months and decided that retirement was not for him, so he's back at it. So this is Michael. He goes by Mike, though, Corcoran, so
Thanks.
Appreciate him being here.
Welcome, sir. You have a couple words?
Thank you. Thank you.
Couple words?
Oh, yes. Yes. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Town Manager, Council members. Those of you who showed up from the department to welcome me and the members of the community. I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to represent the town of Prescott Valley as the newest police lieutenant. As you mentioned, I do have prior law enforcement experience that I hope I can definitely assist our duties, enhance our duties here to serve the public. I tell you, going through the town and experiencing the public in uniform, I feel very, very respected and appreciated by all those that I've encountered so far. So that being said, as I start to learn about everything else out here, I just can't wait. I'm very excited.
Awesome. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Move right on. Yeah, go for it. This is going to be your trip to Disneyland last year? Is that what we're going to be seeing? 2 years ago?
How are we looking there? Okay.
Hang on a second. Is there something else you're seeing up there? Wait a second. Clerk will just bump us over so we see him on the TV. There you go. We're good.
We're good?
All yours, sir.
How much time do I have, Mayor?
You have about, well, you know what? As much as you'd like, sir.
2 hours. No, I'm kidding. As you know, Lieutenant Jeremy Martin, Prescott Valley Police Department, and what I wanted to talk about today was the upcoming pilot program that we have to offer the citizens of Prescott Valley. It's the Prescott Valley Street Crimes Unit. So I got a few different slides here. There's a lot of information that I want to touch on, and please feel free at any point, if anyone has any questions, jump in and ask me the questions, because we may forget them and we don't want to lose them at the end. So our objective with this new unit that we're wanting to make is basically proactively reduce the crimes in the town of Prescott Valley by actively working with vital law enforcement groups in Yavapai County. And I say Yavapai County because it encompasses not only our police department, even though this is a startup for Prescott Valley, it is pivotal and vital to work with all members of Yavapai County law enforcement. So when I say Yavapai County, I mean every different agency, because we know crime does not just sit at our front door within our community. It branches out everywhere else. Street Crimes Unit is designed to disrupt street-level criminal activity and provide a more safe and secure environment for the citizens of Prescott Valley. The mission will be accomplished by the following. And these are pretty in-depth, but when I touch on these, I think everyone in this room will understand the importance of these and why we're going to try and tackle these. Drug enforcement, emphasizing the identification and criminal prosecution of subjects involved in both the use and sales of illicit substances, basically illicit drugs, within Prescott Valley. Recent drug trends in the community indicate that fentanyl in various forms, including but not limited to the mimic M30 pills, basically the fake Percocets or things like that you may have heard. Unfortunately, they are highly lethal and readily available. We know this due to the amount of overdoses that we've seen not only in our community, but the nation as a whole. These are getting harder and harder to track and to trace and to fight against. And our officers, they're out there every day trying to do the best that they can, but they need additional support as well. And the days of just going around and making traffic stops and finding these things, it gets more and more challenging. We know when we're trying to stop this stuff, we have to get creative. We always say we're always behind the 8 ball in law enforcement. Whatever the people that are committing the crimes, we're always a year or so behind, so we're always trying to play catch up. So we want to be able to play catch up and get out in front of this if we can. We know we're fighting. We're going to continue that, so we want to be more proactive. The formation of the critical working relationships with entities such as PANT, which is the Partners Against Narcotics Trafficking Task Force, and the Yavapai County Attorney's Office, who are focused on the disruption of drug use and sales within Yavapai County. I touched on Yavapai County. We're going to heavily focus ours on Prescott Valley. Investigations will be intelligence-driven, supplemented by information provided by our partnership with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, also known as HSI, and law enforcement. We like to always use acronyms. Several of our officers are currently cross-designated as task force officers. They went through some pretty extensive training to get certified, so they have those relationships already with HSI. The investigations will be conducted using a multitude of investigative techniques available to officers, to include the use of confidential informants, GPS tracking devices, surveillance, trash recoveries, arrested person debriefs, inmate free talks, and good old-fashioned basic police work, uniformed and non-uniform. I talked a second ago about the overdoses and the pills, but one of our key objectives is we've been greatly affected by the increase of drug-related overdoses, both fatal and non-fatal. I think often we hear about the fatal ones, but we probably go on 3 or 4 times as many non-fatal, where our officers are administering Narcan and saving lives. I can't remember the exact number, but last year I think we had 17 or 18 saves, lives that these officers saved by administering Narcan. And our goal is to try and get out in front of it. If we can stop drug dealers and the use of drugs in our community, that's more time that they can go out and do other things, and ideally they can save more lives. They're stopping drug use. Every drug dealer or drug user that they can stop and help in some way, help either prosecuting them or getting the help that they need through rehab or things like that, is a benefit to our community. Fentanyl I talked about was the main one that we've seen. The days of marijuana, we know what how that got voted in. But it's quickly changing. I served in the Narcotics Task Force for about 4 years, and a few years ago, fentanyl was the newest thing, and we didn't know how to combat it and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, overnight, it took off and was very popular. We have the sign as we're leaving right across from Galpin at 169 and 69 that states how many deaths we've had in Yavapai County, and that number just keeps going up. It's no secret anymore that fentanyl is the easy drug that they take, and a little bit of it goes a long way to potentially kill people. Used to be methamphetamine was the big one, then we moved to heroin, and now we're on to fentanyl, which is a synthetic. Very cheap. I could probably stand up here for a couple hours and talk to you about fentanyl and the drugs and stuff like that. So feel free to ask me any questions about that, since I got a little bit of experience with that. Like I said, it's not unique to Prescott Valley, but it's a nationwide problem. But if we just sit back and do nothing about it, I'll come back here next year and we'll give more numbers about how many people overdosed and how our children in school are affected by this. But we want to be proactive. These fine officers up here want to be proactive to stop that from happening. We know we're not going to, we've been fighting the war on drugs for, 50, 60, 70 years, and we haven't won yet. But what we haven't done is we haven't quit. So we're going to keep going. And these fine officers want to get out there and be proactive as best they can. As busy as they are taking calls for service, they want to go out there and hunt down the bad guys to make it safe for our community. Investigation of the use and sales of fentanyl has been proven to be difficult. Drug enforcement techniques utilized in the past, such as canine-free air sniffs, has been quite the problem for us, because a lot of times they're either not trained in the detection of it, and trying to train them and doing that could be ultimately fatal for the canines. So it does pose more of a challenge. So we have to get, we have to open up our bag of tricks and get creative how we do that. Cartels are using different pill forms to include Xanax. I don't know if you guys are, I'm sure everyone is. It's not a secret that we're used to the M30 blue pill that we've seen. I mean, you can Google it and see it. That's the fake Percocets or Oxys or what they call them. But we've now seen in the last year and a half, Xanax. They're putting fentanyl in Xanax. And they're not real. They're all mimic stuff. They're fake. They're not prescribed by a doctor. They're brought up. We get the fentanyl from China. Then it goes to Mexico, where they're making this stuff and sending it up here. So it was the blue pills at first. Then it's gone to the Xanax bars. We've even seen as much as like children's aspirin. So any over-the-counter, we got some Tylenol when I was in the task force. It looks like over-the-counter stuff. That's what we're seeing now. So we do face more struggles with it. But if we do nothing, then we're going to face it even more. Legislature has been presented in the past to enhance the penalties for these, which involve the sales of fentanyl, but it failed. And currently there's more talks ongoing about getting stiffer sentences for those that are selling fentanyl. We had, in Yavapai County, we were very strict on the sale of methamphetamines. We've since, we've tried to get stuff passed, but it just hasn't gone through yet. So we're not quitting. We're going to keep trying. Prescott Valley Police Department is working with the Yavapai County Attorney's Office to seek criminal prosecution outside of drug statutes for those involved in the sale of fentanyl known to have supplied substance and causing death as a result. So basically, we're trying to get creative rather than the old days of someone dies of an overdose, we just go, we investigate it, but we don't look at any other avenues to try and arrest the drug dealer for maybe a homicide or a manslaughter or an aggravated assault. So we're trying to get creative and come up with different ways of how we can do this, and this new unit is going to help with that. I touched on earlier they're going to work with other agencies, PANT, our Criminal Investigations Division, and Yavapai County Attorney's Office to try and get better convictions. Aside from the drug enforcement, which I touched on pretty heavily at the beginning, they're going to focus on numerous areas with our community. Someone asked me, are these guys going to specialize in one thing? And I said, no, this unit will specialize in a lot of different things. Street-level gang enforcement with the community. They're also going to be working alongside DEA and all the acronyms I listed up there. We all have friends in those, and relationships that we've made for tracking down violent subjects who are in our community. Those that are wanted, they're going to go after them and work with those federal agencies to try to apprehend these people. Locate and arrest subjects who flee or assault police officers. They're going to work on surveillance missions of suspects who are involved in serial criminal activity or who are wanted individuals. What I mean by that is if we have a rash of burglaries in an area or criminal damages or something along those lines, we're going to be able to send this fine group of officers out to try and stop that. It's hard for our patrol officers with the calls they take every day to really hone in on these things. So a team designed to do this will be able to get out in front of it, hopefully proactively in front, but if not, which they can't be everywhere at all times, they're going to be able to hone in and try and catch the people who are responsible for this. They're going to also work with the canine units for interdiction things to try and stop drugs coming into our community. And then they're going to work with our SART unit, which is the Sexual Assault Response Team, in helping them in areas such as tracking down offenders, doing follow-up for them, things of that nature they can't do on a regular basis. And also working with Humboldt Unified School District and MAP Force and other entities to help get out education to our children. We talk about the high school, but we want to tackle it earlier. Those of us that have kids in the community, by the time they get to high school, they're already seasoned pros and know more than us about all these things. So we have to get in front of it and get on them earlier, elementary and junior high type stuff. So the structure of the unit, initially what we want to do is 1 sergeant and 3 detectives/officers with an expected increase of 5 detectives based on the success of the unit and operational needs. Not 5 additional, up to 5. So initially we want to start with 1 sergeant who will be the supervisor of it and have 3 officers assigned to that sergeant. They'll be highly trained and experienced in tactical operations, plainclothes tactics, criminal investigation, and fugitive apprehension. I can give you an example. We have a wanted felon in our community, maybe on parole, probation. Someone commits a crime and they go off in the wind. We'll be able to sick the unit on them to be able to do the research, do the workup on them, and they'll be trained up on how to safely and tactically apprehend these people. Because we've all seen the wild videos on TV where officers that aren't trained try and do this stuff, and it turns into a lot more dangerous situation out in our public with vehicle chases and stuff like that. So they're going to be motivated, trained to be able to apprehend these people with minimal damage. They're going to train with our SWAT team, criminal investigations, and canine unit. And being able to train with every one of those groups gives them more, I guess I could say, tools in their tool belt to help them understand the job, whether it's doing search warrants or fugitive apprehension or even canine. When I was a young patrol officer and we used to do our warrant sweeps to try and get bad people off the street, there was nothing better than showing up with the canine. And even though it wasn't deployed or anything like that, when people saw a car that said canine on it, they were more likely to give up. So using that tool is very valuable to us. They're going to work with agencies, local, state, and federal. We're not just going to say just locally. We're going to branch out because it's always good to have different networking abilities and different resources available to us. They'll be both uniformed and plainclothes based on the needs of the investigation. They can work 1 week, whether it be patrol, helping them out with a need that they have, or they can be helping out the criminal investigation section. I'm not going to say a certain amount of hours per week they're doing a certain thing. It's kind of like wherever the need fits, they will be. And they're going to follow in the directions of the field services, one of the field services lieutenant. Field services is basically our patrol division. So currently we have a criminal investigation section, support services, and field services. They'll fall under the field services. Our timeline, what we would like to do, March of 2021, which is coming up in about 2 weeks, we're going to begin assigning a sergeant to the unit. And we want to put the sergeant in there before we put any detectives in there to build those relationships with the other entities in the area. PANT, Yavapai County Attorney's Office, Prescott PD, any of those. This sergeant will be able to come in and make those relationships now. That way when his or her officers that come in, they'll be able to hit the ground running. Several weeks later, we want to assign 3 officers. So the beginning of April, we want to select 3 officers. That way, day 1, they're going to be able to go out and train and hit the ground running and have a mission planned out and ready to go. It won't be where they first move into the office and sit down and game plan what they want to do. Sergeant's going to be in there several weeks early mapping this stuff out. Where's our biggest areas of need and stuff like that. That way, they're not sitting around and trying to plan. They're ready to go day 1. They're going to be very busy, we know, reaching out to our other counterparts to get experience and training and some of the tips and the lost information. They'll be available to respond almost at a moment's notice, but some of the officers have asked what schedule they're going to work, and we tell them we're not sure. Wherever the need arises, they could be working day shift 1 week. They could be working swing shift or graveyard. Depending on the need, they're going to be able to adjust their schedule and tackle the problem at hand. As the unit becomes operational, we'll be able to track the impact within the community. We're going to do some pretty good stat keeping to see how good and how well they've done in the first several months. And then at the beginning of the new fiscal year, following a 3-month pilot program, the success and impact of the unit will be evaluated and operational needs will be addressed. If we need to add more personnel, change personnel, things like that. And that's all I have right now.
All right.
How much time did I take?
And a ton.
It was a lot of information, I know, Mayor, and I appreciate your time. If I can narrow it down just to a couple quick sentences, what we're looking for is a proactive unit that's going to go out and address any needs the community and the police department sees that'll make our community safer. Like I said, they're going to be plainclothes, they are going to be in vehicles. Wherever the need arises, they will be. We want to reduce drugs, we want to reduce crime, and we want to make this a safer community. So.
All right. You ready for some feedback?
Yes, sir.
All right. I just want to first off start off by saying thank you for coming. Thanks for the PowerPoint. The projected timeline, great. That's exactly what we want, something to start. Structure is good too. I appreciate that. I'm sure you've been around long enough to know that we had CRT group.
Community response team.
Community response team, similar to this. Similar, not exactly.
Correct.
We definitely need a program like this. CRT was kind of like it. They responded to certain issues, certain times,
right.
Addressed it. Then you were around when we had NET.
Yes.
Narcotics enforcement team.
Correct.
Focused just on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And you were not privy to any of this, Lieutenant Martin, and I apologize in advance. This is not towards you. This council sat in January in a budget retreat and specifically said, for probably the third time, they wanted a drug unit. And this is something that we definitely need, I think, in Prescott Valley, but it's difficult for a drug unit to work burglaries, criminal damages, help the SART team, and do other additional things when I think they should be focusing on drugs. And I say that because Commander Edelstein in yesterday's paper says 70 overdose calls, we had 18 deaths, 3 children younger than 18. So if we took away overdoses and put DUI-related accidents that killed all these people, we would send out a DUI task force, and they would be hitting bars, house parties, and they'd be wreaking havoc on vehicles, preventing DUIs. We wouldn't be sending them to work neighborhoods or things like that where DUI accidents weren't really occurring. So if we're having this problem with drugs, this council made it clear that we want someone to target drugs. So whether it works or it doesn't work, we're asking, or at this point we're telling, this is what we want. And I reflect back to a time where we had photo radar. Council came up with photo radar here in Prescott Valley. They went in front of the police department and said, we want photo radar. There was a lot of people over at the police department, from the chief on down, that did not think it was going to work. But the chief recognized that's what council wanted. They created a program, they represented it back, exactly what they wanted, and it was implemented. That's how it works when council wants to see something, and it just frustrates me to the point that we have Sheila Polk saying yesterday, or in today's paper, if we do not change our strategy on opioids, Arizona will face an explosion of fentanyl and death. We need to change our strategy, and I think our strategy needs to have people that are focused every day to go out and address drugs. That's just my personal opinion, one vote up here, but it's what we asked, and we've been asking for it for a while. And I'm going to digress for a moment and let other council members speak. Vice Mayor.
Did you want to go down? I saw your hand up.
I just got a question. You said you have the 17, 18 saves.
Yes, sir.
Are these folks entered in a program, or what do you do with these folks when they're saved? Surely they got some follow-up on that.
Well, So generally what happens is our officers respond to a potential overdose. They administer Narcan. They take a report, but the follow-up generally does not lie with the police department. They do go to the hospital. They get treated, but there are laws to protect, Good Samaritan laws, to protect them from even speaking with us if it's a drug overdose. We do have challenges within the last year with that. Before the law was changed, it was a little easier for us to enforce some of the crimes, but I know you're talking about like treatment and stuff like that. Our officers suggest that, they offer it, they give them the tips and the tools and the resources through the county health department, different units that come out and help these people. They give them that information, but the follow up on it, they're not really equipped to do that. I don't know if I answered that question, but it's hard for them as law enforcement. They do their best to save them and give them the information they need, but the justice system, if they are arrested, then they're sometimes given certain drug treatment and stuff like that, but that falls outside of the bounds of the police department.
Okay, thanks.
Vice Mayor.
So I have several comments. No disrespect to you or the other lieutenant or the fine officers that are here, because I thank you for everything you're doing, but we didn't ask for a street crimes unit. A year ago, January, the mayor said, we need to do something about drugs. And then this January, he said, we need to do something about drugs. And so we're saying for a third time, we need to do something about drugs. I was on a 4-hour phone call yesterday with the judicial branch of the House trying to make comments on a fentanyl bill to strengthen sentences so we could send a very strong message. And they didn't even vote on it because they knew they didn't have the votes, so they didn't want to put it up on the board. So right now that bill is dead unless they can tag it on to another bill, which we're very hopeful for, to still get it through after the fourth year. So accidental, undetermined, just so the rest of our colleagues know, undetermined drug intoxication deaths in 2017 were 40, in 18 were 47, in 19 were 68, and 10 of those were fentanyl. In 2020 were 83, and 43 of those were fentanyl. 5 were teens, probably 3 or 4 of them from Prescott Valley, and 21 of them were between the ages of 20 and 29. So in 4 years, we doubled the accidental, undetermined drug intoxication deaths. And just since last year was 10 fentanyl, and this year was 43. So we have to do something about it. I mean, I would love for this unit to be 18-month or 2-year focus pilot program. Nothing can be done in 3 months. And to be called a drug unit, and that title be plastered on the front page of the Courier so that the bad guys know that we're taking this town back from fentanyl and that we don't have any more deaths and we don't have to worry about our kids. I mean, we had 35 people at a fentanyl working group last week that want to roll up their sleeves from all over the community and start helping educate our kids and educate the parents and working with you guys to try to get control of this. But we need strict, send out the message about we're taking back control of this community because we want to get rid of fentanyl. I mean, I'm sure all these other things need to happen too, but right now, like Kel said, this is the most important thing. And we've been asking for it for over a year. And I just think 40 hours is great. I think the amount of officers is great. I think starting it's great. But when's the last time we sent somebody to DRE training?
I can't answer that question. I was never a DRE. I'm not sure on that.
Do
I know
we have
DRE has taken a turn in the last several years. The program has changed dramatically from years past. We have A-RIDE, which is the advanced roadside detection. The dynamic has somewhat changed. I can't tell you that with DREs. A lot of the investigations are done different now. And I don't know if that's an educational thing or just a shift in law enforcement and things like that. But it has changed to where it is a very rigorous course that DREs have to go through. And I say that because I've talked to them. I didn't go through it myself. I did go to A-RIDE, and I think, Mayor, you had gone through it, maybe the DRE. it's very challenging, and I know a lot of the rules and the things that they do have changed now. But I can't answer when the last time.
I didn't mean to
somebody
put
went
you on the spot.
through. Oh, it's okay.
So anyway, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And I'll wrap up here. I'm really passionate about this, and I don't mean to be talking at you, Lieutenant, because I have a lot of respect for you and for the men and women on the Prescott Valley Police Department. But we have to have a drug unit. It has to be called something similar to that. We need to put money towards it and a full court press for 18 months or 2 years to try to get control of this. So I'm one vote, and that's my comment.
I just think, Lieutenant Martin, when it comes to working drugs, and you're very well experienced in it, when you work drugs, you get every other crime that can be associated with it. It all leads to burglaries and everything else. All what we're trying to target, hey, if there's a rash of burglaries, I'm sure the drug unit would know or have an idea of what direction they could go and how they are linked together. I just have trouble linking. We're going to try to investigate drugs, which is so important to us, but yet maybe target graffiti that's been happening, and we're going to arrest someone for graffiti, and we're going to be like, hey, who's selling drugs? And he's going to be like, I don't know, I just tagged my name on the wall. I have nothing to do with drugs, as opposed to someone who is actually selling drugs or using drugs. I've heard the argument that we're not going to be busy enough for drugs. And
I don't know where you heard that, sir.
I heard it from our chief, unfortunately. And I want to just correct him that is not the case. And we have 70 people we can go talk to that overdosed in the past year who may lead us in that direction. So I know there's plenty of work there. I know there's the focus. And like I said, this street crimes unit, I think could be in a symbiotic relationship with the drug unit at one point. Just drug unit needs to come first. That's all my opinion is. Anyone else? Councilwoman?
The idea of proactive policing is perfect. And even per your PowerPoint, really, as the mayor was saying, drugs is the only thing on there that really is proactive. Your other objectives are reactive, repeat offenders, domestic violence, things like that. And so while we definitely want to address those issues at some point, the proactiveness definitely is going to come down to getting drugs off the street. And that is, I think, the number one way to be proactive. And I don't think it's fair, when you said you're going to be ready to, come out the gate running April 1st or whatever the case may be, come out the gate ready and running to train. These guys are going to have a lot to learn, writing search warrants, working informants, even just focusing in one area, it's going to take time to learn all of that. And so then when you start saying, okay, well, now that you've got that, we're not going to put that into practice quite yet. Let's deal with sexual assault, and and it's a lot to try to put on these guys, especially when we would like them to commit to 18 months to 2 years, like the Vice Mayor mentioned. So I think that the idea of proactive policing is great, but we just need to focus on what is the most proactive thing that we can do.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
Officer Martin, thank you so much for this PowerPoint, and it's very apparent how much work you've put into it. After this discussion, is this something, obviously you're branching out in so many different directions, and is this something that you can narrow down and focus and dedicate officers to and target certain areas in what we're discussing with you?
Yes, ma'am. And I know I touched on a lot of different things. The beginning of my PowerPoint, I think the first core of it at the beginning was drug enforcement. I didn't want to just say drug enforcement because I wanted to touch on a lot of other areas that may come up in our community, whether it be issues at the skate park or, a rash of burglaries, like I said, somewhere. I just didn't want to hamstring our guys to say this is all we're going to be doing is drugs, because if we have a need for something else, I understand what you're saying. I completely do. I think at the beginning I said I was in the narcotics unit for the last 4 years. I left there June 30th, and that was the prior 4 years, or just about that, is where I spent my 4 years of my career. And that was my day in and day out. I didn't put on a police uniform and that long because every day that's all I did was drug stuff. And we were incredibly busy. And it seemed like we would take 5 drug dealers off the street and 10 more would pop up. It was a never-ending war that we were fighting. So I completely understand. And I could put 75 police officers right now in the town of Prescott Valley and 100 in the city of Prescott. And more just going to keep coming up. We can, fight it and fight it and fight it. So I completely understand what you're saying.
So,
Councilwoman?
I just had a quick question as well, or I don't know, mine gets rather lengthy also. I think education is definitely the key as well. And I have a lot of questions, and I think too that this is like the new pandemic in a way, that it affects everybody differently. There's some of us that have had this touch very close to home to loved ones that we knew personally, and others it may be nothing that they even are aware of. Just to kind of clarify in my own mind too, fentanyl is a legal drug when it's used as an anesthesia, correct?
That is correct.
And so the resulting usage of a person that gets a hold of it, it actually relaxes them more?
Yeah, it's an opioid. So it first came out years ago. A doctor, his wife had cancer, and he was trying to help his wife out with a painkiller. All the stuff she was getting was not helping, so he came up with this synthetic that helped her out. And it was very inexpensive and worked tremendously well as a painkiller.
So it has its good uses as well, but in the wrong hands, it's
absolutely
devastating.
I think, yeah, at times you can probably go to the hospital and get it administered to you after surgery, still to this day. So yes, when used appropriately,
it has its point.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it an addictive type drug?
Yes, it is.
So once you start it, you want more?
Yeah, and opioids are a whole different animal within itself. When we first started seeing fentanyl, when I was in the task force, it was heroin. Because heroin's a downer, and heroin's very expensive for the common drug user and stuff like that. So what the cartels did is we were cracking down pretty good on this stuff. Is they came out with fentanyl. Let's design something that's really inexpensive, and we can make it in pill form, and we could buy it for incredibly cheap and manufacture it and stuff like that. And it was hard to detect. I touched on the K-9 unit. They weren't trained in the free air sniffs on fentanyl, not at all. So we would do our standard drug stops and drug loads and stuff like that, and we weren't getting the sniffs off of fentanyl and stuff like that. So incredibly inexpensive and incredibly addictive. And I often make the point of fentanyl. They make these pills. We'll just go with the M30 blue ones. It's kind of like when you're at home making cookies. I'm sure we've all done that. So what they do is they combine the ingredients. They put their fentanyl in there, and they put their binding agents as well and stuff like that. And they mix it up, and they put it in a pill press and stuff like that. But as you know, like when you're making chocolate chip cookies, there's some flour that ends up still clumped up in the corner and stuff like that. And there's no FDA regulation and stuff like that. So you end up with larger amounts of fentanyl in some of these pills, hot batches, if you will. And then it's a roll of the dice every time these people take these pills. Years ago, I would have said that, wow, it's unfortunate they thought they were taking, oxys and stuff like that. But I'll be honest, the days of people not knowing that they're taking fentanyl, I believe does not exist. To this day, it's very rare, if ever anymore, that people are taking these. It's unfortunate because I have a high schooler and middle schooler and stuff like that. When they say, so-and-so just didn't know they were taking fentanyl, I have a hard time believing that now.
Well, it scares me when you said it was also found in baby aspirin and things that you could possibly want to take and not think about fentanyl being part of it.
Very scary.
And then it's also absorbed through the skin, correct?
It is. When it first came out, we were very, scared and petrified, and we had 6 pairs of gloves on and masks and the whole thing. And I think they've done medical studies and stuff like that to where it doesn't appear as fatal, like if it touches your skin. Because we kind of started to think about that in the office and when I was working at PAN. It's like, hey, how come all these drug users that are touching the fentanyl and stuff are not dying, because you would think anybody that touched it would die. So I don't think it was as bad as we actually thought. It definitely happens and stuff like that, probably in large quantities, or if you inhale a large amount, or if it sits on your skin for, your wet skin for a couple hours, it can be pretty bad. But, touching the standard pills, I don't know how fatal that is, and I'm not sure that it really is. I could be wrong. Maybe a medical doctor or somebody can come in and say, but we've handled a lot of them, but taking them, you never know what you're getting.
I just try to always see the other side, because I think it gives me insight as to why somebody would do something. I'm not a drug user, never have been, don't want to be. I don't understand on drug lords. I know there's no regulation to this, but I would also think that they would want repeat customers, so they would want to have better control or make it less and not have so many deaths, because that would bring about noticing to them. So it just seems like it's a really hard thing to combat. So I do see it as being a new epidemic for you to have to battle, because you don't know, just like when COVID came about, no one knew so much about it. And that's the hard part to think about. You're going to come into this not knowing the full effects of everything that you could possibly accomplish. So I'm all for this myself as a task force as well, because I think it's something we have to come up against. And there are so many people that are not educated about it, or not knowing what they're taking, or that could possibly be misled very easily, and that scares the bejesus out of me. So
I think you're absolutely right.
Thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate that too.
Thank you, ma'am.
Councilman, did you have anything?
Lieutenant Martin, well, I want to thank you again for your time coming in here tonight, but I always feel the best defense is a strong offense, and I agree with the mayor and vice mayor and the others that have spoke here tonight, excuse me, that we have to be strong. Can we defeat it? It'd be great if we could defeat it in PV. We could drive it elsewhere, drive it to Prescott, drive it to Chino, whatever. But it's going to probably not a possibility, but give it our best shot. But we got to work at it. I was at an American Legion Post 140 meeting a couple nights ago, and there's one of the auxiliary ladies there now involved with MAP Force. And she was speaking the other night about it. So there's getting more and more visibility with trying to fight it in the community. We just got to spread the word. And I want to thank you again for training your officers. But we're behind you, but we do want to make it so we can make it difficult for them to do business here in Prescott Valley. But thank you again.
Thank you, sir. And I always said that too. Let's always make it incredibly difficult for drug dealers.
Yeah.
If we can disrupt them, then we're making a difference.
Yep.
One question.
Councilwoman?
When you brought up over-the-counter medications, you're not talking about tampering with what is there. You're talking about them selling them looking like, or is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We haven't, at least I'm not aware of like anybody going into stores or any pharmaceutical places, any of these big pharma places doing that. It's made by the cartels and stuff like that in the form to look like Xanax, OxyContin, baby aspirin and stuff like that. Because if you think about what they want to do is they don't want to get caught. So if officer tuning up there stops a car and he suspects, wants to search for heroin or meth, if he's picking up the signs and symptoms of that and pulls out a bottle and it's over-the-counter baby aspirin, if he's not trained up on it, he may not have any knowledge that that's actually fentanyl, 150 pills in there. So they get very creative because they don't want to get caught. And it's pretty easy to transport. If you think about it, 10,000 pills you can put inside of your jacket, right, and walk across rather than having 500 pounds of marijuana on your back coming across the desert. Incredibly easy to transport this now.
Brian?
Mayor, Council, we've heard you loud and clear. What I'll do is I'll get together with Lieutenant Martin and Chief Roser. I don't know if tweak is the right word to use, but we'll discuss the...
I guess if we're speaking of drugs, I suppose it could be.
I think that's perfect right now. Yeah.
Direction of this unit, and maybe it's something that as we focus on drugs, we come back to you in 6 months and a year and say, this is how the unit is doing. They're sitting around twiddling their thumbs, or they're too busy, there's not enough officers to do this. There's definitely something that we will focus on and address, and that's something I will discuss with the chief on a weekly basis. And he and I have already discussed about getting more of our officers certified as drug recognition experts, so it's something we've already discussed.
Thanks, Ryan. And I think the pilot program, like the word pilot, I think we're all on a pilot program. I mean, I'm on a pilot program, you know, because if someone doesn't like what I have to say, a bunch of them get together and get me out of here. So it's really just a program that we're going to have. We just have to figure out what makes it work. And I trust in you and the chief to be able to put the right people in the right position to do that. So, I mean, I remember reading the book Good to Great and said putting the right people in the right on the bus in the right spot. So I think you guys can do it. So again, Lieutenant Martin, thank you very much for all your hard work and coming before us tonight.
Thank you for your support, Mayor. I appreciate it.
All right, moving on. Well purchase agreement, Monkswell Fairgrounds, CIP number W471. Mr. Wadsworth, welcome. Did he steal your PowerPoint?
He's more the cruise type.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Tonight I'm here to talk to you about a well site, and this has been a number of months in the works. And so I'll get into this here and talk about what we're looking to do. We identified a need up in our Mingus West Fairgrounds water system to have additional water production capacity, primarily for backup or redundant capacity in the event that we have a problem with one or both of the existing wells up there. There are 2 wells up in that system. And the unique thing about that part of our town and our water system is that that area is physically separated from the rest of the town. There is no interconnection of the water system between what's up there and what's down here. So up there we have 2 wells, one located in Mingus West, one located near the fairgrounds, and we have connecting pipe between those 2 areas, and that's it, and it stands alone. And so it's important to make sure that we have sufficient capacity in the event that something happens. We don't have the ability to, you know, turn on one of our 26 other wells here in this part of the system and make it work. Okay, so we'll end up maybe transporting water by truck or, you know, some other method if we have a problem. But anyways, we identified this need, and we started looking into it to see, well, where could we put another well up here? We actually looked at areas surrounding the Mingus West subdivision up in that area. There's some future property that's going to be developed adjacent to the existing homes, and we were looking on that property. But finding a good municipal production well location up there, very iffy, because you drill a well. We actually drilled 3 pilot wells up there. 2 of them came up with 2 or 3 gallons per minute. So it's not what we would want to invest money in. The 3rd location wasn't a whole lot better. And so we thought, well, we need to move it out of that area and somewhere along the system, probably closer to the fairgrounds location. And so that's what we did. And this diagram shows what the layout is. So you're seeing Mingus West on the upper right and the fairgrounds on the lower left. In the very lower left, there's a little symbol down there in that one white section, top corner. That's one of our wells. The other well you're seeing will be up in the Mingus West area right off of 89A. And so that's kind of the area we're limited to, is being close to this system somewhere. The other thing you need to note on here is that the blue squares, or the light blue squares as opposed to the white ones, are state land property. So they're owned by the state of Arizona, controlled by the state land department. And so we can't actually put a well in one of those sections. State land will not sell or lease you any property for the purpose of drilling a well. So that precluded those areas. So now we're moving down, we're getting closer to the actual section that the fairground is located in. And so the criteria we were using, I've gone over some of it. We need to be reasonably close to our water system and close to APS power, far away from or farther away from existing wells and homes that are in the county, because they typically have wells also. So we're trying to stay away from those areas, not owned by state land and in a good water production area. Just showing you this again. I'm going to be focusing now on the area down closer by the fairgrounds. And so we started looking down there, and we actually picked an area that we wanted to focus on south of our existing well site. And we found a site that was about a half a mile south of our existing infrastructure that was owned by Fain Land and Cattle Company. They own the whole section of land there. And coincidentally, they had drilled a well on the site close to where we were looking. So we went out there, we were driving around, we actually drove up to this site where we were thinking, hey, this might be a good place, you know, because we had identified it on a map. We drive up, and there's a well casing sticking out of the ground. We're like going, oh, what's this? You know, it's like, so anyways, since that time we've done more work, but we really liked that site due to meeting the criteria that we were using for searching for the site. So here's our existing town well shown in red, and the well site that we're now talking about is the yellow dot up there, and you can see it's about 4/10 of a mile south of the section line, south of the fairgrounds there, which is where we have existing well, power, water line, and so it met most of our criteria, or all of our criteria. Once we identified the site, we started talking to the Fains about it, and we went out and did some due diligence. We looked at the records that existed for the well, for both the drilling and the construction of that. We did a video inspection of the well, and it has a 12-inch casing in it, which is a good-sized casing for what we would typically do. And so that all looked good. So we had it pump tested, and it looks like it can produce somewhere between 500 and 800 gallons a minute, which is a good well. We typically don't like to drill them too much smaller or have a capacity less than 500, just because we're going to sink a bunch of money into this thing. We want a good well, and this falls into that category. And so bottom line is we've concluded negotiations with the Fain Land and Cattle Company, and we're looking at an acquisition price of $499,000. And so what we will get for that is a 1/2 acre site with an existing well. What that means is we don't have to go up there and spend additional money to drill and case a well. That part's already done. So if we'd gone out somewhere else and bought a 1/2 acre, you wouldn't expect to pay $500,000 for it. But we were getting more than that. We were getting an existing well, 12-inch casing, with a known production rate. So we're not going out drilling to see, okay, we're going to drill a well here. Are we going to hit water or enough water? We already knew what we had. And so we'll get that. We'll get the easements to get for access to the site, for power, for water, water main. In addition to that, there are 2 other wells nearby that the Fains own, and they are going to sign the ADWR well impact waiver forms, which basically means when we start pumping, if it causes a drawdown on their wells, that's okay. They're giving us permission. And those wells are probably about a 1/2 mile away from this site. So that's what we're getting for the $499,000. If we had gone out and drilled a brand new well, we probably would spend more than this to drill the well, but we would have done it a little bit differently. So we're getting a 12-inch casing. We would have got a 12-inch casing. We would have had a gravel pack behind it and a few other things. We're just getting a 12-inch casing with no gravel pack behind it, which separates. It's a rock that separates the casing from the rest of the formation. Helps cut down on sand and stuff coming into the well, but we can deal with that. And we'll be able to use this well. You know, it could be 20 to 40 years before we need to worry about whether we need to replace it or not. I wanted to show you this site layout that we've got for this site. So the half acre is more than what we would normally need, but what it's providing us is a location for the existing well, which is down in the bottom between what looks like that swimming pool thing and the road. That's where the wellhead is. We've got the ability in the future to drill another well on this same site without acquiring additional property, so we can move 100 feet to the, call it to the right there. And, you know, so 30 years down the road, if something happened to this well, we can drill another well on this site, classify it as a replacement well under Department of Water Resources, and that's all we have to do. We can use all of the existing building and facilities that are inside the well house. In addition, if you approve this purchase agreement, we will still have some additional dollars to spend. We will have to actually equip the well. In other words, put the pump down the hole, bring the power to the site, put the building on, the chlorination system, bring the water line in, build the gravel road, and talk with APS about getting power out to the site. So there's potentially going to be another $1 million or so on top of the $499,000 that we would be agreeing to for the purchase of this site. And with that, I will open it up for any questions you might have.
You know, I think it's just important to note, and you touched on it, with the peace of mind, just knowing we could spend the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months trying to find other spots, right, and just be hit and miss. And coming up, like you said, 2, 3, dry sometimes on wells. At least we know what we're getting, and then we're able to build off of it. So I think that right there puts value in this purchase.
Correct. And the other thing is there's not a lot of property owners out there that have big enough chunks of property that we can say, hey, we'd like to buy a half an acre from you or whatever. And they go, oh, yeah, sure, I can spare that much. I mean, people who have land out there, they're selling it either for homes or they're holding on to it for development. So, the Fains are a good partner. They've got the property out there. We can't go immediately to the east of there because then we're dealing with state land again, and that's a non-starter.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Councilwoman Hepperly.
Is there a storage tank up there?
There is 2 storage tanks located in Mingus West. So up in the upper right-hand corner, on that section corner, you see the little symbol there. That's 2 250,000-gallon water tanks.
So the new well would be pumping to those tanks?
That's correct. All 3 wells pump to those water tanks, yes.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Councilwoman, did you have something?
Where are the other 2 wells, Fain wells, located? Are they on state property that you said we might be drawing from that they would be giving us the waivers for?
Their wells are located within the same section. So in this square that has the red well site up in the top right hand corner. So that same square that's drawn with the black line, section 31 is designated. That's Fain property. Both of their other wells are located within this section. So one of them is probably half a mile due west of our existing well. And then the other one, I believe, is further to the south and closer to Fain Road. So they drilled those. Typically, they use them for their cows, for cattle and such, and so they've drilled those wells. I think the well that we're purchasing, they actually drilled maybe 15 years ago for when the construction of Fain Road went in. They drilled that well, and then they leased it to the contractor that was building the road so that they had a source of water close by. So that was, I believe, what the original intent was of the well that we're purchasing.
And Neil, did you mention how deep it is?
I didn't. It's roughly 1,000 feet deep.
Councilwoman?
And then is Mingus West a lot of private wells there too, or are they supported by the town of Prescott Valley?
The Mingus West subdivision is the town of Presque Valley, and that's what we provide water to. Basically, anything outside of that is county, and those are all private wells, septic, things. We do not provide service to those areas.
But this would be able to help support future growth of other neighborhoods that maybe might be established at a later date?
Typically, if they were in the town of Prescott Valley, yes. But when they're developing out in the county and they're developing, large 2-acre lots and so forth, number one, it doesn't generally pay to put all the infrastructure in to serve those lots. It doesn't pencil out. And with the longstanding policy that we have of any community having to be within the actual city limits, they would have to, we'd have to annex them in, provide all the other services that we provide as a town, including sewer.
Okay, thank you.
Council, anything else? Sir, thank you.
Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan.
No, it's just one quick item. Kudos to Neil. This has been quite a while in the making. He's a tough negotiator, and maybe it's a little more than the town wanted to pay, but it's less than the Fanes wanted to charge. So we came to a good price, and it's on sale for $4.99. So just want to say that.
A bargain.
All right, thank you, sir.
We'll bring this back to you next week with the actual agreement document.
Perfect. Mr. Davis, you're up. Item 3D, bid award CIP number S472 Coyote Springs School Pedestrian Enhancement Project, CDBG, number 103-21.
Need to remember how to learn to do that. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, the item you have before you is a Coyote Springs School Pedestrian. It's a CBDG grant. It's pedestrian enhancements. So I'd like to give a little background. Ryan, Manager Judy, is in the past been very successful at getting these grants from the Community Development Block Grant. It's the federal grant. So these are competitive grants. So I think this is 9 for 9, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan. So over the last 9 years, we've been able to enhance, typically around the schools, around Prescott Valley, pedestrian ways, so in the form of sidewalks. So nice thing is we've, over the last 9 years, done quite a bit of improvements. And Coyote Springs School has been one of the last ones we've been able to address. So we've done a lot of good, and we'll continue to do more good with this particular grant. So we were successful in the grant application here around August, so we've gone through with design. And as you can see up front here, Dave and Associates did the design on this particular project. I do want to call out this, as with any project we do in Public Works, we like to put out a project sign which identifies, the Department of Housing grant. In addition, some of her funding helped fund some of this particular funding source in order to make the project whole. So this particular project, if I may, you can see this is the sign that we did put up for the public to witness out in the field of we're getting ready to start the construction with, if council moves forward to the ward. So we'd like to get the word out, in addition to call out the attention to the funding source, which is good. This is a community development block grant through the Arizona Department of Housing. And Ryan does the administration through the federal grant, which we have become very proficient in. A little bit about the project limits for this project. For the grant limits, we do like to match the funding source, which is $500,000, with contribution from HERF to make the project whole. You can see the project limits here. You can see Coyote Springs School in the foreground. In addition, delineated by yellow is the connectivity that we have. So the project does go from Addis down to Yucca. But the thing that's fun about this, with the 9 grants we've talked about in the past, some other grants we've had for pedestrian ways and trails, you can see the connection to the Powers Trail, which hooks up to the PV pipeline multi-use path. So every time we've built this core network out, we continue to increase the outreach and the connectivity we have throughout town of Prescott Valley. As you can see in the top in the foreground, some of the internal improvements that Coyote Springs School have, we provide that connectivity for the sidewalk that's going to go on the west side of actually Cattle Track, as you see delineated there. So this is the proposed scope, and this is the most we can do to maximize the grant amount for the funding. Just to show about what are we doing. This is actually Sunset Lane, but I just want to show what are you going to see. Obviously, the model here in the core of the town, you've got the roadside ditches. So really what we do is we put a culvert pipe in, carry the stormwater in the same ditch, just put it in a pipe, and then on the top of it, we put in a rolled curb and the 4-foot sidewalk improvements. You can see some of the handicap accessibility curb returns. So just want to show council this is a before and after of Sunset Lane that we just got done with last year, but this is very much what you see. The nice thing about this model we use is that it doesn't disturb any of the existing homes. Really, the existing prism of the roadside ditch is taken up with pipe buried under the ground, so the impact to residents is really minimal. So we do like that. The rolled curb works well for us. This is a residential type of application. This is in a residential area, so the post office likes it because when the mailboxes are moved behind the sidewalk, the rolled curb is easily mountable. And then, of course, the driveways, there's no difference of the driveway access. So very popular, very effective treatment for this public improvement for the separated concrete sidewalk, and the rolled curb and gutter gives that separation for traffic. So it does provide a nice pedestrian way. So this is what we'll look like when we get done with the particular project. Next slide I wanted to show is we're always looking out. I did hear council at our retreat. We do want to increase our pedestrian enhancements. We've talked about we do need a funding source. There's not a dedicated one now, but these community development block grants has been very successful in order to build our pedestrian footprint and mobility throughout the town. So really what you see here in blue is our anticipated, we'll bring it to council, but we're always planning ahead that the connectivity, we would like to do the phase 2 next year. Similar size project, put in for another grant cycle. Ryan's very good at his applications, and I look forward to another successful grant award. And keep in mind, that's a competitive environment that we get these particular grants in. And we do have to perform, and we do a very good job. Excuse me, when we do get the grant money, we perform on the amount of the grant and put the improvement in place. And we've been very successful over the years with Ryan's help with the paperwork and Dave and Associates and our local contract and community building these improvements. So just wanted to show you the connectivity is always fun to show where we've been. We talked about the connectivity to the existing multi-use pass. This will actually connect down to our viewpoint connector. We're looking forward to a ribbon cutting ceremony in the next month on March 11th that council's invited to. There's connectivity to those existing improvements if we're successful with the grant application next year. So always looking out. I did want to point out to council our Elwyn Internal Streets crew has just gotten done this week with the pedestrian way along the viewpoint drive up near Long Look. That's been an internal project to provide a pedestrian way adjacent to the road, get rid of a dangerous ditch. But once again, that's always nice to show the connectivity where we've been over the last 10 years and where we're going. Always building that connectivity throughout the town. So that'll be an application we look forward to putting in for this summer and another grant cycle, and hope to come back this time next year and say we're doing phase 2 and the connectivity. As always, we'd like to show some of the highlights to the area residents. We've already sent out a survey request here when we did the design, but this is what staff proposes to basically frame. If council moves forward for award next week, then we would start the construction here in March and be done about mid-June. And once again, the residents get to see what the enhancement is. And like always, staff's very available to answer any questions they may have about the particular project. So we would anticipate upon award next week, we would be complete, as I mentioned, in June and have this amenity in place this summer. As far as the bid, as you can see from your council action, with Dave and Associates Design, we did go out for bids, and one of our local contractors, Asphalt Paving Supply, is the low bidder on this project. We have a lot of confidence in them. The Sunset Lane, the reason we picked that, they did a very good job on a $6 million Sunset Lane project. We're very confident they can build the same type of curb gutter and sidewalk very effectively for the bid amount. So Asphalt Paving Supply is the low bidder. And then we talked about the timeline. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We do these routinely, and looking forward to provide another pedestrian way in another part of Prescott Valley in an area of Coyote Springs School.
Thanks, Norman. Just confirm it's on the east side of Cattle Track, right? It won't be on the west side of Cattle Track, the sidewalk? One side looked like it was on the west side, and then everything else looks like it's
You're
on the east
absolutely
side.
right. We start on the west side, but when we went through the design, it is going to go on the east side.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, for that correction.
All right, great. I just want to make sure. I mean, they're going to be happy either way, but I just was for my own mind, just trying to figure it out. Council, anything else for Norm?
Happy to bring it next week for...
Yes, absolutely. This is a great project. Super excited about it. And Ryan, 9 for 9, but who's counting, right?
No pressure for next year, right?
Set you right up for it, Ryan. Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Moving on to item 3E, Presque Valley Economic Development Foundation, contract renewal.
Let
Judy, are
me
you taking
introduce
us?
that real quick, Mayor. Since 1996, the town has had a partnership with the Presque Valley Economic Development Foundation to go after what we call base jobs. You've probably heard us say sometimes we refer to the town's economic development efforts as a three-legged stool. We contract with PVEDF, their acronym, to recruit these industrial jobs. We have a contract with the Presque Valley Chamber of Commerce to support existing businesses and to do events for us like Presque Valley Days. And we have our internal person, Cutter, who focuses on bringing retail into the town because we have no property tax. Retail pays the bills, so that's a big focus for us. It's hard to believe that we're coming to the end of a 5-year contract with PVEDF. This contract was written where they had a $150,000 base contract, but they had 2 escalator clauses in there where if they hit a certain number of investors, of private investors or dollars, then they would receive $25,000 increases. They hit both of those targets, and so they've been receiving $200,000 from the town for the past 3 years, I believe. And we would propose that we continue with that existing level of funding going into the future. They've been very successful, and Mike will tell you, they aren't always able to land jobs in Presque Valley, but that's where they first try to land the jobs. And if we don't have the right building, the right property, then they'll expand out into the area, into Chino Valley or Prescott, because we've always believed that a job is a job, and even if the job is in Prescott or Chino Valley, they may live here, they may shop here, and it benefits the entire area. So with that, I'll turn the time over to Mike for our presentation.
Thank you, Ryan. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mike Paredes, Executive Director of the Prescott Valley Economic Development Foundation. Thank you very much for having us today. I got about 30 slides. I'm just kidding, Mr. Mayor. I promise I'll make it quick. New faces I haven't met, council members. Look forward to working with you as we have over the past, I've been here 6.5 years, and so look forward to working with each and every one of you as we continue work for you. Thank you very much. As you know, Prescott Valley Economic Development Foundation is a 501c corporation. Our main goal, as Mr. Ryan Judy mentioned, is to create that base job creation. That is everything in the manufacturing, industrial sectors, the non-commercial, the non-retail. It is not the restaurants, it is not the hotels, it is not stores, but those base jobs that usually come at a higher pay rate, that come with fairly good benefits, and also during hard times, pretty sustainable, as we have seen over this past year. So again, our job is to make the Prescott Valley, town of Prescott Valley and its region very competitive, to attract quality jobs, human capital, which means quality jobs, individuals coming into our area, expand existing industry, but basically work our clientele, our market, our focus is outside of the state of Arizona. I will never poach anything within the state of Arizona. That is not what we do. Never have I done it, never will we. However, outside of the state of Arizona, it's game. So as you know, we work with a lot of states that are usually high taxed, have difficulty being successful in their state or in their municipality, i.e. California, i.e. Washington, Oregon, Upper Midwest, usually of those that are really high taxed. And they like this area because it's very viable to do business, business friendly. And then I always sell the easiness and the easiness to do business, specifically here in Prescott Valley, because they work with you, and you've always been very, very receptive and good to receive these companies. Again, our target market, today I'll talk about California. We have Ms. Leslie Contreras' staff here at different times of the year, staffed in downtown Los Angeles, and so we're very happy to have that situation. This is what a lot of larger organizations, EDOs, economic development organizations like ourselves, with very, very large budgets, have staff all over the country, specifically in these states. I have friends, economic developer professionals like myself, that live in other states that have larger budgets, and they have staff in California, in Chicago, in New York, in different areas. And so it's very susceptible to have, it's a great opportunity to have somebody there. What we do is always to the benefit of Prescott Valley. What we do is market everything that we can for the town of Prescott Valley. We do extensive research. We just don't go out there and see what comes up. We have thousands and thousands of lists of companies, and we dissect that, and we take our time, and and make sure that there's a proper fit for Prescott Valley. We don't do the high water usage companies. We don't do the high pollutant companies. They have approached us. It usually stops at our office. I remember presenting to you a project that is either of that, for obvious reasons. We'll never do that. And if you can move to the next one. These are why California is a key market. These are some of the companies that we have specifically relocated into the region over the last few years. This is in the last 3, correct? In the last 3. ESI Grips is a grip company, cycling grips manufacturer, completely made in the USA. We're from the northern deserts of Los Angeles. Barney's Precision out of Covina, California. Luce's Machine out of Huntington Park in LA. And the last 2, CP Tech and Thermovac. Thermovac is a company out of Orange County, about $5 million capital investment, approximately 30-plus jobs. Purchased an existing building in Chino, about 18,000 square feet. And so, again, about 30-plus jobs. And CP Tech was one that decided in the city of Prescott. It was between a property here in PV proper and Prescott. They decided the one in Prescott, about 50,000 square feet. Can change if you have a little more detail on that one, right? These are the types of jobs that this organization, with your support, goes after. This is an example of CP Technologies. They were based out of San Diego. Now they're going to be headquartered here in this region. These are the high-quality jobs that they come. These are the currently hiring for this location. Again, 50,000 square feet, and under the company details, that tells you the capital investment and the number of jobs that they plan to create. This is one of those companies that this is a first phase of potential many others. The office will continue working with this organization, the owner, and all the managers to continue helping them expand into the region. And again, it's not just about those jobs, but it's what it brings in. The partnerships with the Yavapai College, the partnerships, the schools, the school districts, the Humboldt Unified School District. Guess where they're going to build homes? Guess where they're going to purchase homes? Guess where they're going to shop? It's an economic impact. Currently, we're going to be working with Yavapai College so we can do a major economic impact to see where this project and the others stand, and so that way we can present it to you and see the benefit of continuing supporting an organization like ourselves. And so just wanted to show you that it is a quality company, quality jobs, and this is what this region needs. We want to keep our workforce here. It is very easy to drive an hour and a half down the 17 and get employed in Phoenix, but as much as we can, we want to try and keep our youth, our graduating youth, continue partnering up with our educational institutions, and keep those jobs here. And so I just wanted to give you an example of that. Again, obviously working in business retention is another element of PVDF. It's very important to sustain, once they are here, to sustain them and retain them here. The last thing I want is an individual like myself from another state to do the same thing. So at the end of the day, it is our job to work with our partners around the state and making sure that what we want to do is to qualify them for all available business solution grants, monies that are out there, assistance programs, business assistance programs that they might be qualified for. And so this is what we've been doing with the top photo is Mr. David Russell, and this is the state Arizona Manufacturing, what is it? Oh, yeah, Extension Partnership, MEP, sorry, Manufacturing Extension Partnership through the Arizona Commerce Authority, also the Rural Commerce Authority representative, and we're trying to qualify him for a couple of grants. And so it is our job to keep them afloat, keep them successful, and keep them here, and assist them as keep assisting them in their expansion efforts. No, I'm going to turn it over to Leslie, take a couple minutes in talking about private membership, and then we'll make it quick, promise.
Hi, guys, Mayor, City Council members. Thank you for having us. Again, your help is what keeps us continuing to be able to go to California and reach out to these companies, and you guys are such a great help to us. As you can see, we are a member-based organization. We have public investors and private investors. Excuse me. The public being the town of Presque Valley, and then private investors are our local and regional businesses. Like Ryan mentioned, we had a base of $150,000 that the contract states, and then if we met 2 other levels, then we would get a bonus. In the last 3 years, we have met and exceeded those, as shown in those graphs. As you can see, in 2020, we did decrease a little bit, and this was due to the unforeseen situation that happened in 2020. We have spoken to multiple different economic development organizations, and this is the case with most of them. You know, a lot of businesses are being more conservative with their budgets, and because most of our private investors are those small companies that are located here, they have been a little bit scared to invest when they don't know what's going to happen. However, Mike and I have continue to strategize how we can motivate these companies to continue investing, even if they don't know exactly what's going to happen with their budget. One of the ways that we one of the things we started doing was updating our investor benefits. We offer benefit packets depending on how much they contribute to our organization. One of the things that we have done is really focus on using social media, especially because a lot of people are on social media right now. Most people are working from home, or they're not necessarily in offices. So the exposure that social media gives us is great for us. It's affordable. It's a way for us to continue supporting our members and giving them exposure to the type of networks that they might not have, because we have different followings than they do in our social media platforms. One of the new initiatives or strategies that we have been working on is doing virtual interviews with some of our companies that are high investors. It's a way for us to showcase what they do for the community, or what product they offer, in order to increase either their sales or just to increase their networking opportunity. One of the companies is Goodwill. Goodwill has a great workforce development center. Not a lot of people know that. So we have scheduled our first interview with them next week. We also are doing Haley's Construction. We're also doing Yavapai College. So these companies that have that are doing great things for our community are supporting our economic development. So we're really, really focusing on that. And that's another way to incentivize them to continue to invest. Our podcast is another way where we are able to reach out to more clients. Podcasts are really a way for a client, a CEO, to listen to the experience that some of our community members have had in the area. We've had, for example, Lucy's Machine Shop with David Russell, the owner. He relocated here, came on our podcast, and explained what the difference between living in California and living here is. So we are really, really pushing for that. Mike and I are really just looking for different ways to continue to bring in private investors, because we know that that is how we keep the lights on as well. And I think that is pretty much for membership retention. If you guys have any questions on that. Okay.
So looking forward, Mayor, members of council, we're going to continue. Pandemic allowed, what we do usually is spend a lot of time in these target markets doing a lot of B&B events, business-to-business events. We had a really successful one in Anaheim a couple years ago. It was one of the companies, Thermovac. It was about a 3-year project that we were involved personally for 3 years trying to locate that company. We finalized it in that B2B event. It was literally at a restaurant across the street from Angel Stadium in Anaheim, and we solidified that project there. So we're looking forward to business opening up again in these markets, continuing doing the trade shows that we do, the manufacturing industrial trade shows throughout California. We've done one up in Portland, I believe, and we're looking at the Seattle area as well. Expanding our marketing strategy and expand our partnerships. Arizona Commerce Authority, the governor's office, Yavapai College, of course, with yourselves, the county. And one of the most important things is that I've been trying to do for many years is work with investor groups out there to possibly do spec buildings. A lot of times I've always brought it up to this this council, is that supply and demand. The demand is very high to get out of these states. However, at times, most of the times, the availability of space is not there. Industrial space. There's a lot of commercial space, a lot of homes. I cannot locate and will not bring to you a manufacturer to locate at an old Albertsons, as the case of a couple of years ago. And so industrial spaces will need it, and so I will continue that work to work with potential investors or groups out there that might be interested in doing a spec building. They're coming back. For many years, they weren't doing it. They're starting to do it in Phoenix once again. I see that a lot of up and down that 303 corridor and other areas in Phoenix. A lot of my counterparts have told me that they have started doing down in Phoenix, and so my job is to get in front of those entities and present to them Prescott Valley and why they want to invest here. So, do you have any questions? I've been really quick, and I did that on purpose.
I have a question for you there, Mike.
Sir.
I was at a council meeting last quarter of last year. I was sitting in the audience at that time. You had mentioned that there was some prospects. First of all, you had mentioned the one prospect that you had that ended up going to Chino, which I understand that. Mm-hmm. But at that time, excuse me, you said you had some other prospects. You weren't at liberty to give too much information because all of a sudden the council of people would guess who they were.
CP Tech.
Pardon?
CP Tech.
You're right. Okay.
That's one.
Well, that was one. But is there any others that you're working on here? Maybe you're not at liberty to speak, but you're working on others that are coming maybe potentially to PV.
There are. And again, the answer will be that I can't mention anything.
I understand.
So, all 100% of our projects are completely confidential. So that's why you never see me in the forefront in newspapers or online saying, look who we're working at. For obvious reasons, I can't make that public.
I understand.
Yes, but to answer your question, a big yes.
Okay, I just want to know because I just got a memory like an elephant, and I was going to just ask and find out for sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'll be back doing quarterly reports, I believe, and
maybe really before that.
I'm really crossing my fingers. It's a 2-part project, and I really want to tell you, but it's I'm crossing my we worked really hard on this next project. Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Mayor, council member, that's actually one huge benefit to working with a foundation. Because a lot of these companies don't want their names out there. They don't want their competitors to know that they're shopping around. And so the advantage of working through a foundation is they can keep that information confidential. If Mike were a town employee, everything is a public record. People could kind of find out what was going on. So that's a huge benefit to working through a foundation, in addition to the private investments that they bring on board.
And Ryan, and Mayor and Council, a lot of times when you do work with these companies, their own employees do not know that they're talking to me.
Right.
They're no employees that they've been talking to me for a year and a half. So that is another reason. Hence, but yeah, that is why it's completely confidential. But yes, I'm hoping in the next quarter.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you guys for being here. I like that graphic you had of the cool side of Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really good one.
It was internally designed. Can you believe it?
Really good one. How many of the 750 jobs you got in the past 5 years were in Prescott Valley? Roughly, do you know?
Prescott Valley proper,
Yes.
within city limits. So the bottom three, Barney's Precision is just over by M&I, across the street.
Right.
And Lucy's Machine is on the northwest corner of the 169 and 69, excuse me. There's a little industrial area there. That's county area. Each of them about a dozen jobs, ESI grips. Do you know how many they have? About another dozen as well. Yeah, it's especially the top two, the Thermovac and the CP Tech. It was a good fight for them to be in PV. I know it's not many. However, I know for a fact there's a lot of Lucy's came in and bought a lot of homes here in PV. I think they're in Granville actually, and a couple other places.
And don't get me wrong, I think it's great. I think a job in the region is really good, but you and I have talked about ways to get some money out of other public jurisdictions, and I know that's going to be our goal this year, because I think that's important, because we put in a big chunk of change. So I just want council to know that we are addressing that and trying to be creative, and that you have one on the horizon that is looking at PV. And so anyway, good job. Thank you, Leslie, for being willing to be in LA. That's quite a coup for a little foundation like this.
Yeah, it is.
To have her living there and attracting businesses. So
yeah, and FYI, the way we meet is there are office shares in buildings that trying to make money because of whatever reason, and so it's you go under WeWork.com, correct? WeWork. It's about $10 an hour, and you get an awesome office and you get an awesome boardroom and technology, A&V, whatever you want, and that's how we are meeting with potential clients. But yeah, we put in a lot of hours, especially with CP Technologies and Thermovac. Many hours, many trips into Orange County, and so yeah. First and foremost, my loyalty is here 100%. Secondly, I don't want it to go outside of our Quad City region. If I can keep it here, I will work my darnest to keep it here, and I'll always report to you. And we appreciate your continuous support as you decide on our next 5-year contract. Please visit our office at any time. We are over in Pavway on the other side of the Chamber of Commerce. We're on the back side. I call it the front side, but Marnie says it's the back side. But it's, but yeah, please, we're here for you. We represent Prescott Valley, and thank you very much for your continuous support.
Thanks, Mike. Just keep grinding away.
Oh, will do. I've always grind.
I'm confident in that.
Always grind. Yeah.
Good job. Thanks for the presentation. It was great.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
And Mayor, with your approval, we'll bring this back before you probably in March for an official contract renewal.
Okay. Perfect. That being said, folks, wrapping it up. Item 4, adjournment. Have a great night. Be safe.